All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Black Male Archives. I'm your host, Rodney Freeman, and we have Gregory Walker here, Gregory T. Walker here from the Brothers Network. Sir, how are you doing today?
I am doing very well, Rodney. I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon, this evening, and chat a little bit with you.
Yes, sir. I see what you're doing in Philly, and we want just to hear about what you're doing there and your network, and just let the listeners know a little bit about you and your background.
I'll go slow with my background because it's a long one, and I'll be succinct as well. I grew up in Connecticut. I'm a third generation entrepreneur. My father was a restaurateur. He owned 6 restaurants and a nightclub. His name is Johnny Walker, no joke.
Okay.
And uh, his father, Fred Walker, also owned a store in Boynton Beach, Florida, where my dad is from.
Oh,
So, and now
yeah.
Yeah, so now I am leading and founding the Brothers Network. I've lived in New York City, in San Francisco Bay Area, in Washington, D.C., in Baltimore, and had stints in Atlanta and also Chicago. But now Philly is my home.
Yeah. Boynton Beach. So we talked a little bit about this briefly.
Sure.
That I was down there in Florida, but Boynton Beach. What type of memories do you have going down there from your childhood?
Well, we actually used to go every summer. That's the kind of family I had. We'd actually go on summer vacation to Boynton Beach and drive, which was just horrible, right? For a child to
Yeah.
drive in the car with the plastic seats and the heat, and there were never enough bathrooms. But when we got there, we had family and we had good times with my grandfather and Grandma Eva, his wife. So really, really good times, and my uncles as well and my cousins. So it was really wonderful to see growing up in New England and to see life in the South as a
Yeah.
child was quite different than what I was experiencing in the suburbs of Connecticut in terms of
Yeah.
race and ethnicity and culture. Very different. I can't at all say I'm a Southerner, but I certainly had that experience of being in the South during the summer. So really a
So
fond part of my childhood.
yeah, I have to ask this because you had that growing up. You had that you had that image of a black man owning his own business.
That's right.
Can you speak to that a little bit? How that might have formed your mentality and got you to what you're
it's
doing today?
it's certainly a blessing. It's certainly a
Yeah,
blessing, and it also instilled in me this notion of hard work and endless work.
yeah,
My
yeah.
dad never had a day off. It
Mm,
was a restaurant that was many restaurants, but they were open in the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and he was always at work and
mm,
always talking about work.
mm,
And he was fearful that his white employees might steal from him at
mm,
his restaurant in East Windsor, and so he would get up in the middle of the night and drive up to East Windsor to see if anybody was taking his meat out of the refrigerator or the fridge, right? And
mm,
so we thought, this is insane.
yeah,
Why are you doing this, Dad? And then of
yeah.
course, my dad, he caught somebody one day taking the meat
Wow,
and the produce out of the refrigerator, out of the walk-in, and he woke us
wow.
up to tell us, I finally caught those son of a guns. I knew they were stealing from me. And so it's taught me to be, ever watchful and ever careful and never, ever, no pun intended, turning a blind eye.
Mhm.
Because, people say they're on your team and then sometimes they're not. And, the Brothers
Right.
Network is 15 years old and we have
Mhm.
expanded with an international board in Paris, France, in Edinburgh, Scotland, obviously board members here in Philadelphia,
Okay.
but all across the country. And of course, in the San Francisco Bay Area, which we talked about, our library friend, Tyrone Cannon.
Yeah. So
So this is
tell me how this network got started.
So the Brothers Network started right where we are now. When I moved to Philadelphia after living in the other cities, I was struck by the lack of diversity in audiences in the arts and culture. When I had lived in Washington and New York City, and of course in San Francisco, I saw Black people and Black men attending all kinds of performances, opera, ballet, Black plays, a whole bunch of stuff. I would always see a good number of Black people. And when I moved to Philadelphia, I didn't see that. I didn't see Black men in attendance at the ballet or the orchestra in the ways I had seen it in other cities.
Hmm.
So I set out to fix that. And I sort of would run up to people. I'm 6'5" and I weigh 230 pounds. So when I run up to someone, they respond. They say, let's see what he has to say, right? Because they're not sure. And I'd say, hey, would you be interested, you and your wife, being interested in coming back to the ballet with me? Or would you be interested in going to another concert with me? So this was sort of how I did it, right? It's organic. It's just old school networking, just kind of walking up to people who are at a similar event and asking if they would rejoin and come back. And so we did that. We partnered with the Philadelphia Theater Company at first.
Hmm.
That was our first theater company.
Hmm.
The play was written by Daniel Beatty. It was a play called Resurrection. It tells a story of 6 Black men. Daniel Beatty is an amazing playwright. And so we called up the theater and said, hey, we'd like to bring a group of 20 guys. And they were like, what? What are you talking about? You're going to bring people to the 20 Black men to the theater? And so we did. 15 years later, we're still engaged with the Philadelphia Theater Company with their current production of Choir Boy. And we do audience development when and where we can. We also produce work. The play that's at the Philadelphia Theater Company right now, Choir Boy, is written by Terrell Alvin McCraney, the Brothers Network, who you may know from Moonlight. Did you see Moonlight?
Yeah. Brilliant
playwright, brilliant thinker, currently leading theater at Yale University. We have produced his work 4 times, and this was before Moonlight. We were producing his work.
Oh, wow.
So
that's awesome, man. That is really awesome.
Yeah. We at the Brothers Network like to say that we are working in the artistic, curatorial, editorial ways of informing and engaging the larger community of the brilliance of Black men and really, honoring their humanity in that process. And playwrights, we think, and authors like James Baldwin, theorists like W. Du Bois are all people who are integral in the foundational work of the Brothers Network.
And how did you expand this network? Because from what I understand, you're saying it's not just in Philadelphia, it's in other cities, other countries.
That is correct. So as I said, I run up to people and I don't really use social media, but I'm a pretty good networker on my own. And I meet people, they find it interesting. It's not for everyone. We recognize that. Like the Harlem Renaissance, sometimes they talk about the Talented 10th or the Guiding 100. And we realize that not everybody's interested in high art and high culture and theater as a way to move forward. We recognize that. Many people are once they learn about us, and we think that niche of people is already connected to each other. The books that we have chosen to read by Black authors, so if you're interested in reading books by Black men, you would automatically in some ways be a part of the Brothers Network. If you're interested in going to theater other than Tyler Perry, I said it, then you might be interested in, attending shows produced by the Brothers Network and or the kind of theater that we're talking about. I don't mean to diss Tyler Perry. I think that's relevant, but not 100% for everybody.
Gotcha. So looking say like 5 years out, 10 years out, right? The impact that
we're in year 15. Okay, look 5 years out. Okay.
Hey, I know you guys have been doing some good work, for some time now, but looking at the future, I guess, where do you see the Brothers Network going to, or where do you see the Brothers Network at, in the next couple of years?
That's an interesting question because the world is changing as we speak. There's a war going on, pending perhaps World War III, who knows? There's an economic decline, obviously, in the world. Inflation is rising. And we actually started during the 2007, 2008 economic decline. So we've been there before. We've worked through COVID with a level of success. Really, we're happy about that. And so we are strategic in not making a longer term plan 5-10 years out because the variables are so incredibly unknown. And we like to work with a success mindset. So we have some things planned, of course. We didn't pivot towards digital because we think the in-person experience is much more powerful than digital during COVID. We just didn't do it. We shared other people's content and other people's work, but we didn't do that because we think the in-person experience is solid. And again, because of that, we're able to have audiences come back to the theater and see shows like Choir Boy.
Yeah.
Watching something on a screen is not anywhere, in my opinion, as insightful and delightful as it is seeing it in person.
Yeah.
So
And I,
for the 5-year plan, we'll continue
mhm,
doing the work that we're doing, continue to build our partnerships
yeah.
locally and globally with other
Mhm,
organizations and other festivals. That's the 5-year plan, just to continue what we're doing. We don't
yeah.
have a lofty goal of any particular thing, but we would like to get into some more festivals around the world and participate in those festivals and conferences that are relevant to our work.
Yeah. And I know, I'm glad you hit on that, that in person, because you see a hunger for that right now, of people just wanting to be able to interact with people. So I think you're on to something with just, staying in that lane and doing those in-person events. Why do you think this is so important? This work that you're doing is so important.
Well, I think that Black men since 1619 and before 1619 have been maligned in every possible way and misunderstood and misconstrued in every possible way. We set
Hmm.
the record straight. We talk about the brilliance of Black men from the beginning
Hmm.
of 1619 in America, when Africans, not slaves, when Africans were brought to America in ships, forced in chains. These are
Hmm.
human beings. They were not slaves. Many of them scholars in their own right in the countries from which they came from, in the regions in which they came from, in Benin and other places, historical civilizations. And when we talk about the fact that these are human beings who were living their own life, doing their own thing with their own communities, and they were
Hmm.
literally stolen and dehumanized. And these are human beings, right? Sometimes scholars make the mistake of calling them slaves. They're not slaves, they're human beings. They're
Hmm.
people of African descent. And so we
Hmm.
start with that as our notion of Black people and Black men in particular. And then we look at the systemic ways this country has continued to dehumanize them. And then we see this in the modern day right now
Hmm.
with the ridiculous murders and killings of Black boys and Black men. And we want the
Yeah.
larger society to understand that we're humans and
Yeah.
we have a humankind and we have families. And you see in the media, when the Black man is depicted, they go and try to tell a bad story about him as if he was, a bad guy to begin with. No, he wasn't a bad guy. And none of us
Yeah.
are bad guys. I
Right.
think our influence at the Brothers Network really comes in influencing jurors in a trial when the policeman is on trial. Because if the
Mm.
juror who's collected from the voting public knows person,
Mhm.
they'll be less likely to say the cop was right for killing him, right? If we see us as
Right.
human, they're going to be less likely to treat us as an animal or something worse. So
Mhm.
we are hopeful in our um, work to really bring the full humanity to Black men in our society and the world.
Yeah, and I was just, and you probably have already answered this question, but I want to go ahead and ask this. And it seems like that's your motivation, but what is your motivation for you to keep up, keep every day, coming to work and doing this type of work? What motivates you? Is it that, to
It is
changing
that
this narrative, or is it
it
something
is
else?
well, correcting a false narrative. That's correct.
Hmm.
Correcting a false
Yeah.
narrative and replacing it with actual factual data.
Hmm.
And looking at the diverse and broad lives of Black men uh, in this country and around the world. Again, this particular play, the Terrell Evan McCraney play, really shows a very different side of what people might think. It's about Black boys at a Black school, at a Black prep school. And
Hmm.
sometimes we don't think about Black boys at a Black prep school.
Right.
Um, and members of the Brothers Network have gone to prep school and or private school.
Yeah.
Some of them have, and
Yeah.
we celebrate that as authentic and as real. And so this
Mhm.
particular play, is really about a choir at this school and what happens and the interaction between the boys. And I mean, it is just brilliant.
Yeah.
The playwright is brilliant in his own right, but it's just a really brilliant play, and it's something that people don't think about.
Right.
Black boys at a prep school, and maybe there's
Right.
a choir or something, or and this is how they, there's a Harlem Glee Club, there's other, but people don't really think about Black boys singing in glee clubs or in choirs in this way, in an all boys
Mhm.
environment. So
Yeah,
really a powerful story.
right, and I remember us talking briefly before because we had a conversation before this, and we talked about
Hmm.
showing different aspects of Black males. Um, how are you mentoring this younger generation to do the work that you're doing?
Well, we don't have a mentorship program per se. There are
Mhm,
many young brothers who are involved in the Brothers Network, some of them actors, some of them writers, some of them performers, and we don't have a formal mentorship program.
okay.
I think that that's a learning and an organic process, right? To find a mentor or mentee. We have
Mhm,
not focused on that, but I can tell you that many members of the theater community who are younger
mhm,
have gravitated to the organization, and a work that we
mhm,
produced this past summer. The lead actor has really been an informal mentee of mine, and I learned from him,
mhm.
quite frankly.
Yeah,
Jarrett Chichester is really, really phenomenal as an actor and wants to learn more about acting and theater.
yeah,
And we produce theater and we showcase theater, and so he's learning, and I'm learning as well some
yeah,
other things about how younger people communicate.
yeah,
I was surprised to hear that they learn so much from YouTube.
yeah.
Um, I was so
Yeah.
surprised to hear that.
Oh, yes.
The play that we produced over the summer was Passover,
Mhm,
which talks about two young Black men in their neighborhood and what happens to them and what their dreams and their hopes are. So
mhm,
again, this play, Passover, which went on to Broadway in New York City,
mm,
um, was really a learning experience for everyone who was in the audience. And
mhm,
again, you talk about partnerships. We just continue our partnerships and expanding with theaters that want to work with us
mhm,
and share these kinds of stories. Theater Exile is who our partner was earlier this summer. And then we just produced, in conjunction with Theater Exile, a play called Motherfucker with a Hat. I don't know if
mm.
I can say that or not, but I just
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Okay. It's
That's
actually a
that's
play.
what that's what I love about YouTube. Hey, go ahead and say it.
Yeah, Motherfucker with the Hat. So it's a play about what happens to a drug community and people who are on drugs and their process. And so when we think about drug dealer and we think about addictions,
Mhm,
sometimes that image for many people pops up as a Black man.
mm,
And this
mm,
play featured white males and females.
interesting,
That's what I thought.
interesting,
That's what I
interesting. And
thought.
I wonder who the reaction to the play was. What was that like?
Well, it's brilliantly written, and it was our
Yeah,
it was the director who decided to cast it as white people as essential four central characters, and
yeah,
because we wanted to share with people a multiplicity of story, that not
mhm,
everything around addiction or drugs or inappropriate behavior is centered in Blackness. That pain is
mm,
universal. And
mm,
so that was we think, one of our most audacious plays. Our other plays have centered obviously Black leads and Black characters and Black stories, but this
mhm,
was a little departure and the name was obviously very, very controversial. So,
yeah,
but we have a long history. We follow in the tradition of August Wilson and Lloyd Richards from the Yale School of Drama, and
mhm,
we're big theater fans. We're big theater fans, and so we love to tell the Black story through
yeah.
art and through literature and through theater.
Man, this is amazing work. Can you for me just name where you have networks at? Where are the locations that you have them at?
So we have board members in Edinburgh, Scotland, Dr. Tommy
Okay.
Curry, who wrote a brilliant book called The Man Not in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Mhm.
Obviously in San Francisco, Dr. Tyrone Cannon, the University of San Francisco, who's an acting dean
Mhm.
right now.
Yeah.
This is putting me on the spot because I can't remember everyone all at once. In in Paris, Dr. Monique Wells, who was our only woman on the board, and a scholar in her own right. And her work in Paris shows and tells everyone the stories of Black people in Paris. She
Yeah.
is a dynamo in leading tours and telling those stories, and just really an aficionado of Black art and Black culture. Coleman
Right.
Domingo also serves on our board. Coleman Domingo is now in a new Obama produced film Um, I don't know how much I
Okay.
can say or can't say, but
Okay.
what we see in Coleman Domingo in this spring, in this amazing, iconic film, again, advisory committee and on the board only work in spaces that continue to amplify the work that we do in telling
Hmm.
great stories about Black men.
Hmm.
Two artists as well, Beate Ross Smith, who's out of New York, and Cosmo White, who is out of Atlanta, both contemporary artists, both brilliant in their own right. And we'll put hashtags underneath to be able to follow them and their work, um,
Awesome.
now and into the future.
Yeah, this is awesome, man.
Oliver
What?
Franklin is our board member in Philadelphia, who is an OBE.
Mhm.
Oliver brings a wealth of experience and knowledge about building organizations and sustaining them. So we're happy to have him as well on our board.
And it is
Is our
just a
audio
little
okay?
bit. Yeah, it's just a little
Okay.
bit of delay there, so I apologize about that. But what any other special projects that you guys are working on? I know you talked a little bit about uh, the play that you guys are producing right now, but are there anything? Is there anything else that you guys are working on or have in production right now?
Yeah. So we're also doing our own production um, of a play about, not sure if you can hear me,
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
Elaine Leroy Locke, who is the dean of the Harlem Renaissance. And that play will be up in the spring of this year. And that's Elaine Leroy Locke, who is known as the dean of the Harlem Renaissance.
Okay. I had to. We had a small echo there, so I had to kick the other person out. But can you repeat that one more time for us? I'm sorry.
Sure. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay. So the play that we're producing this spring is about Elaine Leroy Locke, who is known as the dean of the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem
Okay.
Renaissance was the movement in the 1920s, exactly 100 years ago, that celebrated artists, poets, musicians. On, we are an extension of the Harlem Renaissance.
Hmm.
We use art and culture and theater, poems and intellectual discourse and dialogue to put a path forward for Black people to see how brilliant we are and have been.
And Gregory, this is really good stuff, and I'm sorry for the. It seems like our connection is going in and
So
out a
that's
little bit
that's
right
that's
now.
what's on deck for us, and a number of theater partnerships as well.
Awesome,
Yeah,
sir.
we're
Again, I apologize about the
we're
connection. I
thrilled
don't know what.
with our progress. Again, 15 years.
Ooh. Our connect I guess our connection is kind of a little funky. It's getting choppy a little bit, but I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast. Can you let the listeners know where they can follow you and learn more about your organization?
First thing I'll share is that, folks, do you see it for Choir Boy? I think you can see it in Philadelphia, and also you can follow us the Bronet on Twitter, and on our Instagram is www.thebrothersnetwork.art. That's ART. We're high touch, and so we also have a phone number, and just anywhere in the world at 267-334-4897. Best way to be in touch with us. Website again is www.thebrothersnetwork.art. You can sign up for editorials, be up to date about what we're doing anywhere in the world. I just want to say thank you, Rodney, for the time and the attention that you had given the Brothers Network, and to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing now and into the future.
Oh man, thank you,
Thank you.
sir, for being thank you for being on this podcast. We really appreciate you. The Black Male Archives, where we capture, curate, and promote positive stories about Black males, which you are one of. Thank you, sir, for being on there. I do apologize for the at the end of the our conversation, the internet. But any information that you have, I definitely will put it out there. We'll definitely have you back on this podcast. Hopefully, we can do something in person. I would really love that, to come up there to Philly and hang out and us have a conversation. So again, thank you for being on the Black Male Archives podcast. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.